morning. It's a Monday morning. It's Judge's Jules. It's HH and the Judge. Good morning, Si. How are you?
Morning, mate. Yeah, all good. Raring to go. A bit of a sad that so many are rained off, and that Carlisle should have been rained off and wasn't. But yeah, this is a bit of a time for reflection.
Very much so. There's not quite so much to choose from, is there, over the week?
No.
We had
a good
day
on Saturday,
weekend for you?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, not bad. We had a nice free bet on Saturday for everybody. Alexia the Nuts, who did the business in style, beating your old mate, Master Chewy there, Judge. I won't rub it in too much.
Yes. Well, funny enough, obviously my subscribers had a really good weekend because we had That's All Right Gino and Hansard, which we will talk about later.
Brilliant.
So it was a good weekend. Just the same as Sacchio couldn't have won, wasn't it?
Yeah. But
anyway, enough about that. So I think we've spoken quite enough about that particular thing between us. So let's get on to the racing from the week. Yeah. I get some top stuff, and but I'm gonna sort of like get the quieter stuff out of the way first. And my first one for the tracker ran on Thursday at Taunton. In the 3:10 at Taunton, the winner was a horse called Gillen. And if you actually go back to Gillen's, I think it's back from 20s into 9 to 2, heavily backed horse. And they're a very shrewd outfit, the Kaylee Willacott outfit. They knew when they had one lined up. And this horse actually, in its previous run, had a decent form. If you looked at it, there's winners out of the race. But the horse I want to mark up is Imperial Measure. Now, this division of this handicap hurdle at Taunton was running a much faster time in Division 2. And for me, was a much stronger edition out of the two races. But this Imperial Measure on its previous run finished third to Asian Spice, at Exeter. And this particular race has thrown up 6 next time out winners. It's been a gold mine for me personally, finding horses that have come out of the race and won since. Imperial Measure was third in that event. But if you watch the race back at Taunton on Thursday, Gillen could kick for home as they turned into the home straight, and Adam Wedge was stuck in last, all behind a wall of horses, and it literally took him to the next hurdle before he could get in his face and pull himself out. And he ran on into second. The winner was very impressed, won 13 lengths. Whether it had beaten the winner, I don't think it probably would. But I think, put it this way, it would have been 10 lengths nearer if he could have got out. And I think the two of these are well handicapped horses. So my very first one for the tracker is a horse called Imperial Measure. It's an Evan Williams horse.
Yeah, this trainer jockey combination, they had a real pop at people on Twitter who'd accused them of having an easy on one at Chepstow a few weeks ago. Do you remember?
I do. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened that one at Chepstow. Only they know that.
I kind of think that one at Chepstow probably had reasons, but I think it's probably. But sometimes you can get guilty by association, can't you? I think when you've had, it's like crying wolf. There's been a few, let's say. I think it's applied.
They have a lot of horses. I mean, this is a fact. It's not an opinion. They have a lot of horses that are run so quietly that are held up and brought through. And if you do that, you're always open to punter's frustration, shall we say? I don't know why he held this up, because, like you say, the winner was so far clear. Was a heavily gambled horse. It was he expecting it to stop, or did he think they were going too quick? I don't know. Only he knows that. But it looked like really he should have been trying to get after it a lot earlier in the race, didn't it?
I did feel that way. I think at the end of the day, probably the winner would have won, but the fact he would probably been a clear second, and that, like I say, the race had a decent shape to it. If you looked at the next edition, I think the other edition, the horse that finished like 8th in that particular, it finished 11th in the Exeter race, the Asian Mays won. Asian Spice, I keep calling it Asian Mays. Asian Mays won. That finished 11th. They ended up finishing 5th in the second edition. So it does make me feel that the first race was much stronger. The first division of the event was much stronger, and the time suggested that too, because it was a much quicker time.
Yeah, I mean, they're a yard I tend to give a bit of a wide berth, and that's my right as a punter, as everybody's. If you feel that you can't predict, then you don't have to bet certain yards.
That's right.
What I will say, is that people say you can't land a gamble anymore. This Gillen, 25 to 1 shot the previous night, still 16-1 in places in the morning, was steadily backed before winning easily, going off at 8-1. At 9-2, sorry.
9-2.
Opening 8-1, going off 9-2 after
That's
already
right.
sustained support all day. Maybe you can land a big touch after all these days, Judge.
Yeah. Look, it must be possible, but it's like, I think a few of them accounts might get closed, don't you?
I think, yeah. Well, good luck with trying to get more than 50p on another of her horses if you were involved in that. Hey, look, well done. But yeah, a quiet one, another quiet ride, and we're not suggesting any impropriety. It might have been told to ride it like that in pre-closer. However, you know, as a punter, it is frustrating when you think, I wish you'd get after it a bit early. But yeah, I can see why you want to be with that in future. And you're right, that previous race, you know, winners left, right, and up the centre, very, very hot race, wasn't it? So I'm sure that form will continue to work out. My first one ran in the 12:30. Readers of the column this morning will read the Prof's tutorial, and if you're in his service, you would have been on Inch House, the winner here. Big raw type that is written about in the column about possibly being a type for one of the big handicaps at Cheltenham or Aintree, and I tend to agree with the gist of the column that it could be up to that. I think it was Idols, I think it was well worth it. It's going to get clobbered again by the handicapper, but I think he's one of them horses who'll find it hard to peg back. Now, if they do go Festival wise, I've got a funny feeling, as is suggested in that column, that you might not see in Charles, because if you're going to go for a big Cheltenham handicap, you've got to have quite a bit in hand. If you go for another race and you were to win it, yeah, exactly. I think he's on a mark that he'd get in now, or his new mark. But whether they run him or not before that could be whether they feel the need to run him again to ensure they get in to where they want to go, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think if you see him again, it's because he's not high enough in the weights. If he is high enough in the weights, and there's a couple of options for him at Cheltenham and at Aintree, where John Joe's had a lot of success over the years. They might just keep him in cotton wool because he's an exciting, progressive horse. So that's everybody can eye catch him. However, the one for me is the third, Killer Kane. I think he took a very keen hold here. Well, I don't think he did, and used up a lot of energy early on. I thought it was a really impressive run. He had more weight than the winner. He had 11.4, that had 11.3. And I do think this horse is far better going right-handed. And I think the next time to get on him will be to see when he goes back to Sandown, Kempton, like that. I think he ran a really solid race here, but I do think you want to be with Killer Kane when he goes right-handed, particularly good at Kempton. And I'm sure that Mr. Joe Tizard will have a race in mind for him. And I thought that was an extremely good performance. It's good to see Brendan Powell riding well again. And looking somewhere back to his best. So that was good to see if you're a fan of that yard, and I certainly am. Yes. And so Killer Kane, get him in your book. The last month they've been running superbly, pretty much across the board, and I don't see any reason why that will stop. Elixir de Nuts was superb. The horse that ran in the big race ran an absolute cracker. I know we've discussed him on this program where we said he needed to go back up in trip when he ran at Ascot. Yeah, when he ran about at Ascot, so he's in great form. I thought we'll come to that race, but he would be one that would interest me in the Grand National.
Yes.
Or a Scottish National.
Be a good idea, perhaps a little segue to move on into that. Right? I certainly see
we'll talk about that race then.
Right? Yeah, I just obviously finish your selection there, Killer Kane. I think the winner is progressive, but I also thought the second ran a nice race. He came back to form. Lord Baddesley, I can see him winning round Plumpton. Or he does like it here, funny enough. He's run well at Newbury before. That was much more like it. And the Chris Gordon stable is just beginning to show, shoots of light again. And after a pretty slow start for him, I'm pretty sure he'll start banging the winners in the new year onwards. And I think Lord Baddesley is another one from that race you could probably see winning. So move on to the old Coral. What is it called now? Everyone calls it the NSC. Coral Gold Cup, they call it, And I think
do you know what? I can see why Hennessy packed in because everybody still says the Hennessy and they keep getting free advertising. Coral would be fuming. The jockey said it.
For about 8 years, is it, or something? I don't know.
The jockey said it. It's great to win the Hennessy. I thought Coral would be pleased you said that.
Yeah, it's like the wet bread as well. So that's the other one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Eldorado Allen is bang solid. He's run a really nice race, and you could see him running well in the national. But I thought the horse that run well, I think the second and third are both national types, aren't they? Montbec Genius for me, I thought was a little slightly softer ground. I can see that running well in the national, and John Joe can get one lined up for the national as well, don't you?
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a very, very solid renewal of it. The right horses were up there. I mean, Eldorado Allen, I think he's a national type. He ran he really kept on after that last fence.
He did. He ran a belter.
Cloudy Glen, we know, has won the race before. I thought Shake 'em Up Harry was much improved.
Much better.
I thought he ran a great race. And the horse I thought had a squeak and I think ran well, but was only 8th. Bill Baxter of Greatrex. Yeah. I think he's got a big handicap in him. Maybe something like the Great Yorkshire or one of those up at Donny. I could see him being a perfect type for that. Stolen Silver was on the surface disappointing. But I think he needs softer ground. I thought the ground obviously it was frozen ground. And the times were quite decent. I wouldn't give up on Stolen Silver just yet. And complete unknown. Well, I mean, I couldn't believe he went off 4-1 and he had done nothing to suggest he should be that price. It was insane. But I've got to say, when you get a Nichols or a Henderson or a Mullins and they appear so confident and they bet them so heavily, you start to get swayed and think, well, Nichols must know what's needed to win this race. And I think the gamble snowballed all morning. And then you get to the race and you think 4-1 in this field. And then you look at its form. I just couldn't. I thought it was the lay of the century at that price. I'm not after time. And I said this at like 20 minutes before the race. I could not believe that. And I mean, it's run no sort of race at all.
No. Which I think it's really soft ground, really. I think he actually said that afterwards, didn't he? The Cobden afterwards. It's just it's a slow old boat. He needs a stayer. And, he got taken off his feet and he could never go with them. He wants soft ground. But it was a good race. I think there was a couple of national trials. Your horse Eldorado Allen, he's definitely getting well handicapped now. He might even, I suppose he won't come down for coming fourth. He might drop a pound or two, but I doubt it because it's such a valuable race. But he's definitely got a chance off his mark now, picking up a handicap for sure. But it was a good race.
Two of the stars of last season, I think it's an interesting, I don't know what your view on it, were the two Lucinda Russell horses, Ahoy Senor and Korak Rambler. We've now seen them both twice this year, and they've barely beaten a horse. I don't know what your view is.
A little bit more promise from Korak Rambler on his second start, but definitely not on his first.
I thought Ahoy Senor looked a horse who was out of love with the game on Saturday. As soon as other horses got to him, he chucked it in.
Yeah, he's had a lot of battles though, and he's perhaps he, might be worth trying over Hurdle's side just to give him a little bit more, a bit more of a chance. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're talking about Korak Rambler running in the Gold Cup, aren't they? And I don't know what, and he even said, "Oh, Senor, going back there. I don't think he likes Cheltenham. Maybe going back for that race at Aintree, but they're going to have to seriously improve on what they've shown so far to be competitive in Grade 1 races."
Oh, for sure. I mean, I kind of, you want a confidence booster definitely with Ahoy Senor. I think Korak's Rambler is definitely more of a spring horse. And you could see it sort of when it started last year. Yeah, it wasn't the greatest of last year. So I've got more of an open mind with him. But Ahoy Senor definitely, he's had plenty of old battles as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, maybe he just genuinely is that'll do for me. I mean, like you say, he's had some incredibly hard races. Yeah. But I'd just be very careful with us, Sue. I'd need to see a little bit more from Ireland before I was wading in on nationals and Gold Cups and whatever. So yeah, just and just quickly, the horse that fell. I know Harry Skelton of jockeys always say this, but it was too far out to know. But old Midnight's
Yeah, he was going well, Midnight River. Yeah.
Midnight River, sorry. I know Harry Skelton felt there was nothing in front of him at the time that he was worried about because the winner came from further back. But, you know, he jumped really well. And you've got to jump at me. But I think he would have been bang there. I think he's a good horse.
I think he'd definitely been in the shake-up. I think that's a fair shout.
But I wouldn't give him as an eye catcher because I'm always wary of, you know, next when a horse is falling about backing him the next time. But with him, I might make an exception. I think he's a good horse.
Yeah. Well, at least we covered that race as well. I think it's always worth doing it. It is a good race. I'm now going to move from Thursday to Friday. I think it was Friday, yes. And also, I don't know whether I put up before. I think I might have done more for bumpers last year, but I really like a horse called King William Rufus for Chris Gordon. I really thought this horse was going to be a nice novice hurdler this year. But after 2 disappointing runs over hurdles where he pulled too hard or didn't hurdle very well, this was his 3rd run. I was kind of hoping he might be quietly out the back and running on it in 3rd, because he looked like he was going to get a mark in the 90s. But anyway, the winner of this race was the Henderson, which is going to win the Supreme straight after the event, Jericho de Ropponais. Now, that couldn't be more impressive if it tried. However, a little, you know, someone quoting 3-1 after it's won is just bizarre. I mean, bearing in mind, if you remember last year, the Henderson horse that won this race that ran on the Saturday, I've forgotten the name of it now, in the yellow and black colours, ended up going off 3-1 favourite for handicap off 131 on Saturday. He pulled up. So let's just, you know, give the horse a chance. But 3-1, the likelihood that Willie Mullins has got half a dozen still to run yet. Look, it might be Henderson's best horse and it might win the Supreme, but I certainly don't think it's worth 3-1. I think it's drifted back out again now. But these anti-post markets are impossible to work out sometimes now, aren't they? I mean, so overbet quick.
I mean, we said earlier, and I'm not saying, look, I was impressed. He kind of looked like he was getting a bit outpaced, and then Nico asked him, I think just before the second last, and he quickened like a very, very good horse. But this wasn't, you know, I mean, I made the point to you that Mullins always has in the Triumph and in the Supreme, he always has a mare that is seen at, you know, some minor Irish track on a wet Wednesday that wins a 3-4 runner novice and then goes straight for that race. He's got no idea how good it is. Only it costs 180,000. You've got no idea. And you know, if you remember, one of them was Snow Princess, who the year when Jamie Moore went over at the last on Goshen ended up scooting up the rail and winning. That horse had only ever won once at a minor meeting. He's going to have about 8 or 9. Gordon Elliott's going to have 3 or 4. Now, this might beat all of them, but that's 10 potential contenders we haven't even seen yet this year. So I'd be wary. Listen, on the day now, the first race of the festival, whatever happens, somebody's going to want to try and lay you. So you might get 2-1 on the day. I'll take 3s now. And you'll know everything in the field on the day, won't you?
Look, you know, I think it's probably about an 8-10-1 chance with me. You know, you can understand. You wouldn't want to lay much more, but like to get carried away, it's just unreal. I think it was Jet Power, wasn't it, the horse that won this race last year? But just the old grey cells. I mean, that was favourite in the Supreme after this race last year. It hasn't won a race since. It just let's get it's calmed down a bit, you know, after one run. Anyway, let's get back to me horse, King William Rufus. Now, this horse for me travelled well and he jumped well on that day. I'm just hoping the handicapper got listened into the hype and actually listened to the form, because on RPRs he ran to 101. If this horse can get a mark of around 100, I think it'd be a good thing in a handicap. I hope he doesn't get anything more than 105, for example, because I don't think he deserves that. But I think anything south of 105, I think this horse it should definitely win a handicap hurdle. I think it's good enough to win a novice hurdle. The horse in 3rd was an expensive purchase, and that ran a lot better. But for me, though, King William Rufus was the horse to take out the race.
Yeah, the only problem I can see, and you made an interesting point about wanting to see it out the back, is that you run the risk of being guilty by association here.
Yes.
You finished second to the most hyped horse, certainly in the UK, over jump season so far. And you just got to hope the handicapper has his sensible head on and doesn't start getting carried away and sticking you on 110 and like that, which I'm sure he won't go that far. But yeah, and I'll tell you what, was another good ride by Rex Dingle, who's got to be the most improved jumps jockey out there. I think he's riding brilliantly this year.
Yeah, I think Chris has picked up a good one there. I mean, he's
and he's getting a lot of good rides.
Good ride. I mean, the ride on Dashel Drasher was good, wasn't it? I mean, that was a great ride on the Friday.
Yeah. We're all cheering the second to get up, but that doesn't mean
we weren't. Because I love both of them. It was hard.
I love the old second. Yeah, I thought it was great.
I mean, that just shows you where the 3 milers are, though, doesn't it? That we're cheering on. You know, if there's got to be something, one of the younger horses somewhere that's got to be worth a try in the 3 mile division. I mean, obviously, T Hoopu is, for me, he's got to be favourite after yesterday's win.
Yeah, but he's flopped at Cheltenham before.
He's got to have soft ground, doesn't he? And you don't know.
Get it.
Yeah, you don't know that.
I wouldn't be taking any prices on him until the day, and if there's no heavy in the description, I would lay him. So
certainly no cut in the description. You know, you want soft.
I think he needs proper deep ground. I think even good to soft, I wouldn't be interested in. But right, I think we're going for the same race in our next one, aren't we, Judge?
Yes, we are, mate. We are.
The 2:15. What a race this was! The old Jerry Field, and of course, I'll deal with mine first. The story of the race was the fact that I say red hot favourite ended up going off joint favourite. Now, this is we talked about this before. When a big yard have one that drifts, I think you've got to be so wary. Then you add in the green and yellow of JP. This horse under control. His form got the most sensational boost by the other Henderson horse who won the great
Iberico Law, wasn't it? That one.
Yeah, Iberico, whatever. I mean, this thing beat that, and you would have thought, right, I want to be with this. Some of the early shows on Friday, I know they can be very bad value early shows, but I had this horse in at 10 to 11, even money. And he just drifted and drifted and drifted. I mean, Henderson and Nico were quite kind of, not aware, looking forward to it type thing. The money was for Brentford Hope, who'd won gagged up here so impressively the time before. My one sort of thing I was quite wary of Brentford Hope was that, I look back and I know it was a different yard, but he got well and truly beat at Weatherby in a pretty poor race. And I thought, has he improved that much? But I could see why on the strength of the last one. But neither of them two. I mean, first we deal with the hot pot under control, held up in rear, weakened quickly after 2 out, eased on running, tailed off. Trainer's rep could offer no explanation. So we've gone from 10 to 11. He was 5 to 2 and nudged back into 9 to 4. I think there's got to be some concern whether we've seen when we'll see under control again, but we'll come to that. He's flopperoony, dreadful. Then we got Tapley. Also, I tipped last time out. Came here in great form. He's run an absolute cracker to be fourth for Susie Smith Yard and Elizabeth Gill. I thought it was brilliant. Brentford Hope's got beat, and then the two we're interested in. Now, my eye catcher is the second horse here, Bad. I think he's run a brilliant race. Now, Ben Pauling, like all punters, I have a bit of a love-hate with that yard in that they can think that everything, all their geese are swans type thing, and they can go in really heavy. They do land some good gambles, and I think he's a very, very good trainer. And I'm a fan of all the jockeys that he uses, but you have to be a bit wary sometimes when one's 10 into 7 to 2, whatever. They can get a bit excitable. But I think here they've got a horse to go to war with at the festivals. This is mega, mega strong form. I think the third Brentford Hope's probably run his best ever race. Hansard, who you're going to deal with, I think he's exceptional. And Bad, probably a little bit more inexperienced, but he was getting weight from the winner. I think he's a lot to come from this. He was third at Ascot. I think this was that was a good race. I think this was a very good race on Saturday. I think he's improving, and I think he's got a big handicap hurdle in him. He looks a county hurdle type to me, or a racer that stature. I'm going to be very interested as to what Pauling does now. I think we'll see him again before the festivals. But I think they've got a real live one here. And who knows, these front two might be squaring off again sometime in March. So he's big for me. Bad. I thought he ran a cracker.
funny enough, the two horses I like here, I'm pretty sure they will both get in, but I can see the Betfair Hurdle here coming back to this meeting later on in, sort of early next year.
Definitely.
I think
they're the sort of races they'll both be aimed at.
Yeah, I definitely can see Bad, and also I think Bad will probably prefer some slightly softer ground. Do you remember last year everyone was tipping this horse up to what was the Fred Winter, the old Boodles? I think it's like 33s into 5 to 1. I thought, what's going on here? Look, it was up there for a long way and then dropped away. It's taken a little. Sometimes these French horses coming over here, they take a little while to acclimatise, don't they?
And he had a hard race there. There.
Look, it ran okay on its next start, but good run at Ascot. There was a good run behind Knickerbocker Glory, which is good, solid form. The second there, Outer Belly, is going to be a useful yardstick. And I tell you, we'll be winning races. But the run on Saturday on ground that was miles, well, I think it was too quick for it, was a trip. And it looked like it was actually going to drop away and finish 4th or 5th and stayed on well for 2nd, didn't it? I can see if they go really fast in a race, I can see this horse doing well. But the horse, obviously, I've also got, I suppose I want to mention Brentford Hope. This was tipped up on this, one of our very first shows, I think. I took this old Brentford Hope from that Weatherby race. I think since it's left Richard Hughes, it's won about 4 or 5 times, hasn't it, since? It's now running in Jerry Fielden's, where it was earlier on in the year, rated about 105 over hurdles. So we do come up with the odd one on here, But the horse to follow for this. Yeah, and me and you were at Plumpton last year for one of the big meetings there, the Plumpton national meeting. And you fancied Hansard and I fancied Master Chewy. And little did we know at the time, we've got 2 very good horses to both follow. I think they're both useful horses. I can see Master Chewy winning again this year. But Hansard, for me, travelled really well first time out at, I think it's around Wincanton, wasn't it, behind Brubo. Gave it a head start, pitched loads of start off the come to him about 2 out, and actually went evens in running at this point and made a mistake and then dropped away. I thought it must have needed its first run. Now, if you watch the race back at Newbury on Saturday, it was travelling beautiful. And just as they were coming into the home straight, there was one, the 33 to 1 shot that made making the run, started going back through the field, and it caused Hansard had to drop back to last. And in the end, he swung. He's gone round the side of the outside and then gone back up the rail again. And I think this one is shade snugly. Now, I don't think the handicapper came in too much for it, because he's only won 3/4 of a length. Of course, it's a valuable race. I'm guessing they'll probably still put him up about 5 or 6, probably 6. I still think there's some joy in this horse, because I think he travelled so well. And the fact, if you remember that run behind In the Pocket last year in a race that's really working out, go and have a little look at that race and see the amount of winners that have come out of that particular race. Actually, a horse you tipped up last week that ran from the Greatwood would run in that particular race, the Henderson horse, the mare. There's been horses. Yeah, winners galore. Lucia finished 3rd in that race. There's been lots of horses running well in Grady coming out of that race, and that looks strong form for me. But Hansard, Gary, he quite often has a good runner in the Betfair Hurdle, doesn't he? He's got a very good record in it. So I think he'll probably get another, probably 6 for this. I should imagine he'll be able to get into that race and probably near the top of the weights. But I think he'll take some beating. And
I mean, in one of the great understatements, we watched at Plumpton,
Just shows you stage start 1 or 2 horse race around Plumpton last year.
Hansard beating Master Chewy, and we went to the enclosure after, and I said to you, you remember, I said, that's probably not a bad little race for Plumpton.
No, and I thought Master Chewy would win the Betfair Hurdle. As it happens, it came 6th or 7th in it after that race. But that's improved for effects.
If you look at the way he's conceded to what I think are very good horses, I actually think that this Hansard's future, I agree with you that they'll target the Betfair Hurdle, but I think his future's in non-handicaps. I think this is a proper serious horse.
Certainly a great horse, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, where do you go? Is he certainly good enough to be in championship races? I'm not saying he'll be winning them, but I think he deserves to have a crack at them. I think he's superb. And I
nice
mean, the only reason I'm highlighting
he'd like to pick
that,
up a handicap on the way.
well, he would, and it's such a big pot at the Betfair Hurdle, and it's a race he's won with big gambles in the past. But I'm sure that he's plotted a campaign. I mean, would he go for something like a Scottish champion hurdle or something like that? I mean, I don't know. That's a handicap now, and so that's probably the wrong analogy. But I could see him lining up at Cheltenham in the biggie. I'm not tipping him. I'm not saying to bet him. I'm saying I think he's an exceptional horse. And these races obviously often don't have any depth, do they? These championship races, Constitution Hill is going to scare a lot of horses off again this year.
Yeah.
You know, you might end up finishing third.
Yeah, he's an improver as well. You know, he really is. Yeah, the faster they go, the better.
Yeah. I think he deserves to line up in the best races. But I do think they'll take in the Betfair Hurdle first, and I do think he'll take some stopping.
Right, we've had pretty good go this week. We've gone a little bit over our normal time.
A little bit over.
To cover at that meeting.
Yeah.
And
great stuff.
What do we say at the end of the show, mate?
Be lucky and have a great week, everyone.
Be lucky and find them winners.